Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Report. I'm your host, Chris Berg. The mission of the show here is really to empower you to build generational wealth with real estate. And our guest today knows exactly that. 21 years ago, he started a business, co-founded it with his wife, called Real Wealth. Since then, they've gone out and they've empowered over 70,000 people to really build their financial acumen, buy cash flowing properties. I think the real key is to live life on their own terms, which I think we all want that. Also, he gave me a signed copy of his book called The Wise Investor. And then he's got a new book coming out, which congratulations, Rich, called Scaling Smart, How to Design a Self-Managing Business. So he's going to talk about how to have cash flowing properties and a self-managing cash flowing business, which is fantastic. Rich Fettke, welcome to the show. It's great to have you, my friend.
Great to be here. Yeah, it looks like we got a lot to talk about today. I'm excited.
I really want to jump into your new book because I think we can really add some value to people about how to build a self-managing, positive cash flow business. But I want to start here because I think it's really intriguing to me. You've had 21 years now doing this business, working with over 70,000 people with helping them build and live life on their own terms. For you, because you've got a really extensive coaching background, and for the people listening, what's the single most important thing you've learned in that 21-year time frame working with 70,000 people?
Oh man. I'm going to say between the business, our employees, the leadership team, and most importantly, my wife, I would say the lesson that I've learned is be curious. And it's be curious about what people want, be curious about what motivates people, be curious about what your spouse wants, instead of coming from the place of thinking you got the answers. I'm going to speak for me personally, thinking I have the answers, that I know what's right for someone, or for Kathy, for our employees, or for the members of Real Wealth. By being curious, it's like really, really find out and understand people, what they want and how we can help them. And so that's it. Two words, be curious.
I love that. And what I'm hearing, so I just want to make sure that we can use this info to help people out there in their businesses, is it's kind of like that Jeff Bezos idea, right? I think, in fact, his number one value, if I remember correctly, for Amazon was to be customer obsessed. So is that what you're saying is, hey, Chris, I really focus on trying to figure out what people's needs are, what they want, and then and I'm thinking more of business. I know you mentioned your wife, which is more important than the business, but
Yeah.
you can develop the right programs or products for those customers, or
100%. Yeah. And it's like, and it comes from coaching. And I started coaching in 1996, got involved very early in the coaching profession. When people didn't know what coaching was, they would say, what sport? When I told them I was a coach. So a lot of it comes from that. It's about asking powerful questions, drawing out from the client, finding out what they want, what they could do. And so it's very much that for the business. It's constantly asking our members, what are you looking for? What are your concerns? What are your challenges? What are your problems with investing? What is real wealth to you? Being curious on that. That's one of the questions we ask all of our members. What does it look like for you when an investment counselor sits down and is meeting with one of our members, talking about, planning their portfolio or their next investment or whatever it might be? That's the staple is being curious about what they want, and then helping them, really looking at how we can help them get there.
boy, what is real wealth? That is such a great question. So when I used to travel with Tony Robbins, we found after you meet so many people, there's just patterns, right? There's kind of the same needs, same desires out there. So based on your experience, and again, dealing with 70,000 people, when you ask the question, what is real wealth to you? What's the most common one or two answers you get to that?
That's what you said earlier. Being able to live life on my own terms. It tends to be the most, common answer to that. A lot of times, and then if we go a little deeper, it's like, well, what does that look like? If you were to live life on your own terms, what does that mean? And so often it's being able to spend time with the people I love and people I care about. That's what's most important, is family and friends and connections. And, that's at the core of us as human beings, what we need and what we want more than anything. And if we don't have the money to do that, if we have financial concerns and challenges, that can get in the way. And we just, don't have that time. We're always feeling, so many people living paycheck to paycheck, or even worse in a way is the busy professional who's working so many hours that they don't have time to spend with the people they care about, and until they realize it's too late. So that's a huge driving force for us.
Thus, I'm assuming, and I want to dive into this because I think it's such a great concept. You and I both have talked about, I was in strategic coach, you are. We've talked about the book, 10X is easier than 2X.
Great book.
And before we get into your book, if you don't mind, do you want to maybe comment on 10X is easier than 2X? Because I'm assuming that was part of the impetus or foundation of this book as well, or no?
Oh, it definitely was an influence. Yeah. I mean, Scaling Smart was, influenced by Jim Collins' work. Stuff, Kathy and I
Oh.
went through a program probably 12 years ago where our business, we hit that magical $1 million in revenue mark. And as young entrepreneurs, we were like blown away. But then we were about 1 million the next year. We were about 1 million the next year. And we're like, what's going on here? And we did a weekend workshop that transformed our business. And it was all about creating a clear vision and purpose for your business. And when we did that and our team aligned around it, that's when we were able to create a self-managing business. So it's so many different influences wrapped up into Scaling Smart, from mentors to coaching to our own failures and experiences in that and what we learned from it. So yeah, it's, but Strategic Coach was a huge influence on the self-managing business side. He calls it a self-managing company, and the concept's amazing. What they don't really go over in Strategic Coach is how do you do that? How do you design a self-managing company or a self-managed business? So that's what Kathy said, and I set out to do. I think we pulled it off.
Well, it sounds like you're living that, right? So I do want to dive into more of the concepts of the book and how you and Kathy are living that from a self-managing business. Before we do, I think what's fascinating to me is what you just mentioned about, hey, Chris, we went through this program and we got clear on the vision and the purpose. That's when things started to take off. So I want you to dive more into that process because recently, when I played football with John Lynch, and he's now the GM of the 49ers. And he said when he went up to take over the GM position, he brought in the head coach Shanahan, and they want to sit down. And he took in a Stanford professor to build out the vision. And Coach Shanahan's like, "Come on, man, you're wasting my time here. Like, I got to go coach my guys. I don't have time to go build a vision." But now that they've got this clear vision, he's like, it's completely transformed the 49ers. So I just want you to talk a little bit about that process for you figuring out that vision and the purpose.
I love that. That's a great question. And I love that that's what happened there, because that literally, there's a chapter in Scaling Smart that is exactly that. And Kathy and I both wrote the book together. So she wrote this chapter, and it was all about in this time when we went through this workshop, and they said, you need a clearer purpose and vision, and you need to all be aligned, rowing the boat in the same direction, if you will. And so there was things were busy, and there was one day, and this is when we were not a remote company. We had an office, and I put a sign up on the door saying, closed, and, we'll be back tomorrow. And we were all in there with our team, a smaller team back then. And I said, okay, what we're going to do right now is we're going to get very clear, all of us together, on what are our core values, what's important to us as a company, what's our purpose, what are we trying to achieve, what are we trying to help people with. And what Kathy wrote about in the book was like, she was rolling her eyes. She's like, we don't have time for this. I want to get to work. We have clients who need us, and the phone's ringing off the hook. And but she also said that was a turning point in the business when it shifted things for our team. It shifted things for Kathy and me when all of a sudden we were about something bigger than just profitability and making money. We're like, oh, this is bigger. We're helping families. We're helping parents become better parents because they don't have the money stresses. We're helping people become better in relationship with each other. So it's like, because Kathy and I knew, we went through some really, really tough times, especially 2008 as real estate investors, that really crushed us financially. And we just really realized that when you have money challenges, or you're stressed out, or you don't have the time to live life on your own terms, it's like, I don't know, it just grinds. It's such a stressor. So when we did that, I got the team aligned, and the way I did it, I just used coaching skills. I brought a little California woo-woo into the room, and I said, okay, everyone close your eyes. And I brought everyone on a mental journey, and we went 10 years into the future. And I said, I want you to imagine that you are at a company retreat, and we are at that company retreat. This is 10 years in the future. And imagine that there's a big number up on the board. What is that number? What number do you see? And then imagine that you look around, you see who's in the room. And then you imagine, you think about, what's your role now? What's your role at Real Wealth? What are you doing? What are you passionate about? What do you love doing? And what's the impact we're making? And then after that, we debriefed it, and everyone had a whiteboard. So I'm writing everything down on the whiteboard that everyone said. And after that, we took everyone's collective ideas and what they saw in the future, if everything turned out just right. And we boiled that down into a clear vision, our 10-year vision. So we were all aligned around it. And so once we did that, and we had from there came our core values. And from there also came our purpose. And once the team was aligned around that, it was like some magical pill was taken where everyone was just like, it was a different focus, less stressful, more about purpose, and more alignment. Really, it's what it all came down to. I think that's what happened with the 49ers. It's just alignment. Everyone's more aligned about a common purpose and a common vision, and just it's easier to operate that way.
Yeah, and I'd love for you to speak to it too, because a lot of brokers, obviously, people in commercial real estate are business owners. So what it could mean for their business as well. And what I'm hearing you saying, and don't want to put words in your mouth, but correct me, is it gives you a new level of focus to the point where also you're okay maybe missing out on some clients because they don't align with you. It's sort of like what John Lynch talked about with the draft aspect of things. Is, hey,
Yeah.
these are the players that we want. Anybody other than that, even if they're uber more talented, like they just don't fit here. So it almost makes it easier to, I want to say, siphon through clientele or people you want to work with. Yes.
I think it becomes a filter, and that's what I love about that. The 10x is easier than 2x book, the Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy book, is like, it's about eliminating 80% of what you do, eliminating 80% of the clients that you work with, eliminating 80% of the work that you're doing that's not bringing in profitability or making a big difference. And so it's really, the whole focus is like, what's the 80% you need to let go of, so you can focus on that Pareto principle of what are the 20% of your activities and the people in your organization and the things that you're doing, 20% that create 80% of your results. It's, old 80-20. And so it sounds simple. It's not easy, but it is pretty simple, really. But it takes time. It takes time to really sit down and say, okay, where is 80% of our revenue coming from? And so I did that analysis. We read that book back in January of this year as a leadership team. I had read it last year beforehand, but then we had our whole leadership team read it, kind of like a book of the month club, if you will. And it's been really impactful, because sometimes, I mean, a great example was, we were on a leadership call, and someone came to me, a friend that I met, a colleague, and he said, I've got this program where we're educating investors on how to fix up properties, how to flip properties, how to turn them, how to fix them up and turn them into long-term rentals. And he said, if you refer people to my program, I'll give you 30% of the referral fee as a fee for sending people over. So I brought that to the leadership team. I told them about it, and it was awesome, because one of our leaders came up, and he just said, Is that a 10x move? He said, "Are we focusing? Is that focusing on the 20% that really brings us 80% of our profits and growth?" I was like, "Oh man, good job! You called me out." So it was great. He called me out. It was perfect. I said, "That's exactly what I was hoping for." And so I went back to that friend and just said, it just doesn't really fit our business model. We're really focusing on just the most primary things that we do. And so I had to say no to him, which was a difficult conversation, because he was excited about the potential new referral. But it also helped us focus on what really matters at Real Wealth. So that's just one example of that kind of 10x mentality.
Well, and so powerful, because I think not even the focus piece, but then when you do focus, obviously you just become so good at that particular arena. I was listening to an investor the other day, I think you may remember, I'm from North Dakota, and he said, "Hey, look,
Yeah.
there's a private equity firm right now where they're making investments only in Minnesota." And you think about that, you're like, "What? Only Minnesota? How are you going to make any money?" Right?
Mm,
But that focus has given them that competitive edge, where now every company there that's looking for private equity, capital, is going to these guys. So I think there's a lot to be said. It can be scary at times, right? Because you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to give up this revenue," but it almost
yeah.
becomes much more powerful. I just want to give you a chance to speak to that and how you've seen that in your business.
Yeah, that's We did that years ago in a simpler way to explain with our advertising. So we were doing, Google ads and retargeting and everything online, and our target market was the United States. And so we are spending a lot of money on ads and kind of like this shotgun approach, and it was working okay. But then we just decided to do that. It's like, where do we really want to focus? And we said, let's be the best in the Bay Area, where we were, originally based. Now we're in Southern California, but let's be the best and the most well-known in the Bay Area. So we took all of our advertising dollars and we geo-targeted the Bay Area, and we became the number one real estate investment group in Northern California. It
Wow.
really worked well. And then we opened it up and we said, now let's go for California. And then we grew from that. We focused on San Diego and LA. We started to hold events here, and we put all our advertising dollars into California. And now we just started opening up to the East Coast and like New England, New York, on that area, because that's where, when we did an 80/20 analysis, that's where a lot of our clients come from. And so it's just a great, if you're a business person, you own a business, it's like thinking about that. It's like, where do we put that attention? Where do we put the focused effort? And you get a higher return, not only in advertising, but in time, in energy, and also for brand equity. People start to know you more than just being that shotgun approach.
Very well said. So let's take it back to people in commercial real estate or brokers that run their own business. You've talked about vision, purpose. What are some of the next steps within your book that say, okay, this is what it takes to build, or maybe you just want to share some anecdotes from your own business, but what does it take to build this self-managing company? I guess let's get some clarity around that. For a self-managing business, what I'm hearing you say is, hey, Chris, you can go leave for a month and that cash flow still keeps kicking out, to you as a business owner. Is that
Mhm.
essentially how you would define it as well, or is it different?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's being able to focus on what you love to do, and not get sucked in as a business owner or a business leader doing things that are not your unique strength, that you're not great at, that you don't love doing. So I think when you really design a self-managing business, it frees you up to focus on what you're great at. And then, so the bottom line answer to that is, it's the people. It's all about the people. And you can't have a self-managing business if you don't have the right people in the right place, and you're not being a great leader with those people and giving them the freedom and the autonomy to make decisions and to grow the business. So, Kathy and I, our first experience with it was a couple of years ago. We took a 30-day trip to Europe with our daughters. And we're like, oh man, 30 days, we're going away for a month, and we're trusting our leaders to run this. And we just said, okay, so if there's an emergency, go ahead and reach out to us, but try to solve things on your own. We came back from the 30 days. No one interrupted our trip the whole time. We came back and the business had made more money and grown when we were away. So that was the big awakening and the big aha of like, oh my goodness, this is actually working. And so a lot of it was the ideas and the concepts that I learned in Strategic Coach that we implemented at Real Wealth. And it took a few years to do it, but it all came back to the people. We had great people and a really good onboarding and really good training and really good empowerment. So I call them inspired leaders. We have inspired leaders at Real Wealth. So they're inspired to grow the business. They're inspired to follow our purpose. And they're inspired to take ownership, where they're not just like, well, that's not my job. They think bigger than that.
So what's your process then to go out and find those kind of quality people? Is it a lot of referrals from people that you know, or are you actively out there like in an Indeed just taking resumes or?
Yeah, the two main things that have worked really well for us is, one is kind of hiring our members. So the director of our brokerage now
Ooh.
was a Real Wealth member. She had purchased a whole bunch of investment properties through Real Wealth. And we had a member panel at one of our live events. And she and her husband were on this member panel talking about how they invested, why they invest, what Real Wealth was for them. And we were just so impressed with her that it was Kathy, my wife, who was just like, we should talk to her about seeing if she's interested in working here. And we went up and she had told her husband she would love to work for Real Wealth. And it was just one of those kind of almost like fate. And so she's worked out incredibly well. So that's kind of hiring for we put it out to our membership, with the now we're up to 77,000 members at Realwell. So what we'll do first is we'll put it out in an email just saying, we're hiring. This is what we're hiring for. If you're interested, go here on the website and fill out an application. That's worked incredibly well because we're getting people that match our culture. And then another one that we used recently for 2 new hires is Wise Hire. So if any business owners watching this or listening to it, Wise Hire has been just incredible for finding talent. We were looking for a new director of finance and legal, and so we put this out on application on Wise Hire, and that basically it's a aggregate. It puts out the job posting on everything from LinkedIn to Indeed to all these different resources, and people apply. So I think we had over 300, I think it was 340 people apply for this job.
Wow.
And then it has a filtering mechanism built into it where it automatically using AI will say like, these people it puts them in 3 columns. This would be like the stars, the kind of the moderates, and the not so goods. And you can go in, you can click and drag, you can move people into different columns, but it helped us narrow down all those different 340 applicants down to the best of the best in one column. And then our assistant went in, who's also does our HR, and she was able to narrow it down to the top 5. And then we did our interviews with the top 5. So it's been amazing. We've done that. We've hired 3 people now through Wise Hire. So that's kind of our new, in addition to putting it out to our whole membership, we also put it on Wise Hire.
Fantastic. So a couple of things. One is I'm hearing you say, Chris, vision, purpose, values, people. I want to talk more about next steps. But first, when you came back after being now I got to remind people that this is 21 years. It wasn't like, hey, 30 days ago we started this business and we took a 30-day.
Yeah, it's been a
Right?
journey.
I mean, I just want to give some context there so people can appreciate that. But you come back from 30 days of vacation, the business is humming along even better. There's more cash flow. Did you and Kathy be like, hey, let's go take another 30-day vacation? Or, I mean, what was your epiphany from that?
We started taking more vacations, yeah, without guilt and without fear, or less fear, I should say. You just never know. But yeah, it's gotten easier and easier and better and better. And yeah, now we're in a place where we really we focus on passion projects. We've got our leadership team running the business and the day to day, and now Kathy and I can focus on. We do retreats for entrepreneurs. We're writing books together. We speak at conferences a lot. We do a lot of podcasts together. So it's really cool. It's like in a new place where I'm not like as much hands-on and working the numbers and hands on the keyboard. More out there being a brand ambassador. It's been really cool.
So do you and Kathy have sort of a dashboard of your KPIs that you focus on a daily or weekly basis to know, okay, the business is good, we need to tweak here? Like, do you have that or no?
We do, yes. Every week. So every week, our only kind of job is to meet with our leadership team. So we have 5 people on our leadership team, and then there's Kathy and me, and we meet once a week for a 90-minute meeting. And yeah, we check in, how are things going, and then we have a dashboard that shows us all the numbers of the previous week, all the numbers for the month, and all the numbers for the quarter that we can look at, and we look at it all together as a leadership team. And we look at what's working, what's not working. And if anything is not working, then we will discuss it. We'll come up with a solution for that. And it's worked really well. So I think organizational structure would be the next step in that. It's like with the people, you can't just have a whole bunch of people doing the same jobs or replicating each other or anything like that. I think creating an org chart, and one of the things we put in the book is create an org chart for your company 3 years in the future. Which sounds a little weird, but if you create your current org chart and you put your name in any positions that you're handling, and Kathy and I did this in the beginning. It was like Rich, Kathy, Nick, Maggie, Rich, Kathy, so like, that's the way it looked in the beginning. And then with that org chart, we said, okay, what do we want this to look like 3 years from today? And then we were able to draw it out. What new hires are we going to make? What positions are missing right now that we need to hire for? And then once we created that 3-year future org chart, we were able to look at that and say, okay, what's the next hire? So this quarter, are we going to hire 1 or 2 people to help fulfill this and build it out? And over time, you got this organizational structure with the right people and the right seats, with the right talents and the right strengths. And I think that's the easiest way to create a self-managing business.
I'm curious with the people part. Like one of the things I really appreciate about a strategic coach is they had me do that Clifton Strengths Finders. Does that ring a bell to you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it.
So are you utilizing that with your hires? Because boy, it has really helped me to see my strengths and go, gosh, you know what? I think I don't know if you have this experience, but there's certain things that I do so naturally that it doesn't seem like a strength. It's like anybody can do that, right? And then you realize, like,
That's a true unique strength, right? Or a
yeah,
unique
and you're
ability.
like, wait, not everybody does process
Mhm.
information. So I was like, okay, I'm pretty good at this stuff. And so I've
Right.
really leaned into that and it's been great. But I'm curious when you're hiring, are you utilizing strength finders at all to ensure that, like for me, if you were going to put me at nose guard, we weren't going to win a lot of football games, right? So are you looking at strengths and then making sure you're putting people in the right positions or?
100% is exactly. That's a great metaphor. And that's the Wise Hire software I was talking about. Not a plug. We don't get paid for it or anything. I just think it's amazing, but all that's built into it. So when someone applies and they put in their first application, it automatically, it's almost like a sequence or a campaign where then it comes back and says, thank you for applying. This is great. We just want you to answer these 3 more questions, and it's all automated, and it has them answer 3 more questions, and half the people don't answer those 3 questions. And it's like, so they filter themselves out. They don't really want the job. They're just putting their resume out to as many um, job applications as possible. So it narrows it down. And then it says, now this looks great. Everything's working out perfectly. Now we just want you to take these assessments, and they're all built into WiseHire. So you can have the Strengths Finder. We use the Colby assessment. Are you familiar with that one?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
how people take action. So we do the Colby assessment and then the DISC. So it gives us an idea. And then in WiseHire, it will say this person is a good fit based on their personality profile, or not so much a great fit. And you can go in and click on why on each of those things. So it really, it's amazing how much of the work it does for you. It's like having a team of 5 HR people who are doing all the work, but it's all automated.
It's so funny because when you said the Wise Hire, I thought maybe that was your own software. You've got the Wise Investor,
Oh yeah,
Wise
yeah.
Hire.
Yeah, really, that'd be pretty good. I think it's WIZE, Wise
Oh,
Hire, but yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
I think, hey, maybe you're building a nice Wise brand there. You know, Wise Investor, Wise
Yeah,
Hire.
right, yeah, go on to the top of the Real Wealth brand.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So, org chart, people, anything else that you would say, Chris? These are also imperative when it comes to building a self-managing business.
I would say the last thing that I think kind of goes without saying, but it's you. I think our whole book starts with what about you? Because so often entrepreneurs, they just start and they're just focused on creating a business and making money. They don't really think about designing their business around their life. They try to design their life around their business. So they got their business and then they're like, okay, any free time, I'm going to use that for me. So I think it's really important to think about just like with that 3-year org chart, what do you want your business to look like in the future? How do you want it to serve you? And what's your why? So many people are obsessed with the growth. I used to be a bodybuilder, and we had this term that we would call bigorexia. And it's just like, it's the sister of anorexia, but it's these guys, they get huge. No matter how big you are, you never feel big enough. And so you're always wearing this big loose sweatshirts and loose sweatpants and everything because you don't feel big enough. And I see that same thing. It's an ego thing with friends and colleagues in business. It's the never enough. So I think starting with, if you're going to design your business, that's why it's called designing a self-managing business. It's what are you designing? What do you want this business to do for you? How is it going to serve your clients? So it's thinking bigger than just growing fast. And that's why the title is called Scaling Smart. And it's about how can you scale your business a smart way and not just trying to grow fast. Because we've seen so many people implode trying to 10x their business in a year. I think 10x is great. We've done it multiple times with our business, but it's taken us 21 years. So it's so many young entrepreneurs get into this trap of let's 10x this year, and they create stress for their whole team, stress for themselves. They start dropping the ball on customer service and all that. So I think it's coming back to that. It's really taking a look at you and what is the business you want to design and build um, before you do anything.
So well said. I mean, you hear about some of these, young entrepreneurs, they get into tech and like, "Oh, I'm going to build the next unicorn." They
Yeah.
go to VCs and yeah, they may hit $1 billion, but they walk away with maybe a couple hundred grand and then they're out. And it's just was like, they walk away going, wait, that's not what I thought it was going to be at all. This is the
Yeah.
antithesis of what I really wanted to design. So, just great stuff, Rich. I really appreciate you breaking that down. I think anybody that's a business owner, I know I feel like I need to go back and watch this right now and be like, okay, my org chart, my vision, the values. So, I see here we can pre-order. How can people get your book? How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to reach out or find out more about what we do is just realwealth.com. Pretty simple URL. And then, yeah, Scaling Smart comes out September 10th. You can pre-order now, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, or at Bigger Pockets. Yeah, I think those are the two things, and I think I'm the only Rich Fettke in the world. So on social media, it's just Rich Fettke.
Well, congratulations on the new book. I cannot wait to read it. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
making us the first show to come out and promote it. And as always, just want to wrap things up by giving you the last word. Anything else you want to add or share that I haven't asked you?
Oh yeah, this is just super random. It just came from nowhere, but it's just something about being in business, being an investor and everything, and the people you meet. So, meeting you through this, it's because of business and because of being an investor. Got to meet you, got to have lunch together, randomly saw each other at the airport, I think, which was awesome. Just all of a sudden I look over and you look at me and I'm like, Chris. And so it's just creating relationships with cool people. I honestly think is the number one thing in business. So I love entrepreneurship. I love business because it challenges us to grow, to get better, to serve people. So I'll leave it with that. Just I love entrepreneurship because it creates amazing relationships.
That was fantastic. I mean, just very well said. Again, congratulations. Thank you for the time. And thank you, everybody, here for joining us. Please share this with friends, family, colleagues. So many great nuggets for entrepreneurs and business owners. This is the Commercial Real Estate Report, empowering you to build generational wealth with real estate.